Hello and welcome to Soul Elevation, guiding your ascension to new heights. I'm your host, Kara Goodwin, and today I want to talk about how solutions don't always come from our brains. And I was just reflecting recently on an example of this from, 25 years ago, I think it was. And I'll get to that in a minute. But we have different levels of consciousness that we're tapping into. So a lot of times we associate our thoughts and our solutions, our problems, and our solution finding ability to the brain, and that can be really limiting because we have these different levels of consciousness. So we have our conscious awareness, which is what we can pay attention to at any given point in time. We're awake, we're noticing. I'm looking at a camera right now. I see that there's light around. I can hear my dog. Hopefully, you can't hear my dog. um, but those are the things that I am consciously aware of. Then we have our subconscious. There's all kinds of stuff happening in the subconscious. I'm not having to think about beating my heart. My heart is beating subconsciously. I'm not thinking about taking a breath. I'm breathing on my own, but I'm not having to put thought into it. My cellular reproduction and regeneration, the memories that pop in, the way that you store memories, you store those in your subconscious. So there are a lot of things that you probably don't remember that you know or remember that have happened, but they're still there in your subconscious. And if you've ever had any sort of hypnotism, or if you've ever just been going through your day or meditating, this happens a lot with me in meditation, where I will just be meditating and a memory will float up that I haven't thought about in decades. Um, your dreams are many times your dreams are happening with the subconscious mind. Now, sometimes your dreams start to happen at the super conscious level, which we'll talk about in a minute. But all of those things are the things that are happening under the surface. So they're subconscious because we don't have direct awareness that they're happening. And one of the things that happens through having, for example, a meditation practice is that more of that we have held in our subconscious that has been hidden from us rises up and is more accessible in the conscious mind. So this is something like, if you think about hypnotism, if you know much about hypnotism, it's cutting into the subconscious mind. It's giving direct access to the subconscious mind. So whether you're accessing the subconscious to address a habit, so for example, they're stopping smoking through hypnotism is very effective because it's repatterning your subconscious. It's going directly into, you've built this habit. There is a subconscious habit that's happening. And it's hypnotism can work directly with that, with the subconscious to break that habit, which can be more effective than trying to do it through your conscious awareness because there's so much happening that's hidden with a habit that we aren't even aware of that's driving the behavior. So then we've talked about the consciousness, we've talked about the subconsciousness, then we've got something called the super consciousness. And this is what we're able to access through meditation. And it can take a little bit of practice with meditation. If you've only tried it a couple of times, you may not have felt that you've touched the superconscious yet, because it can be something that you have to kind of get a feel for it and let yourself get used to having a still body and a still mind. So if you've tried meditation and you're like, nope, there's no such thing as a superconscious, I haven't experienced that, so it can't be. It is something that you're able to access, but it can take practice. And it doesn't take super long, in my opinion, in my experience, but through things like meditation. Also, there are, plant medicine. People do plant medicine journeys, and that can tap you into the superconscious mind. But it can be even that it pops up in your day-to-day activity, that there is some higher intelligence that doesn't really feel like some other, it doesn't present as though some being like an angel has come and presented itself before you, and now you have access to this solution. And that's where we get to the story that I wanted to share with you. So, years and years ago, way before I had a meditation practice, in fact, I was just out of college. So, I was at my first like corporate job where I was being paid salary, and I was actually a computer programmer. And I remember that I was decoding this program and trying to fix this this coding problem. And I've been working at it and working at it, and fixed a few things, but there was still this one thing, and I couldn't find the problem. I mean, I knew there was a problem. I couldn't find the solution. I couldn't find where in the code it was making the program do this funky thing. And I don't know if you're like this, but I was kind of doing this rewards based mental programming in my mind. I needed to go to the bathroom. And I was like, okay, I'll just get this last one or the next one or whatever it was. Like, I'll just fix this issue and then I'll go to the bathroom. And so it was going to be one of those like little mini celebration, not really a celebration, but just like a way to kind of like, okay, tick the box and then I'm getting up. And for for the life of me, I could not find this problem. I couldn't see in the code what was making the program do what it was doing. And it was taking a lot longer to decode this, to debug it, than I expected. And eventually my body was just like, you need to go to the bathroom now. And so I didn't solve the problem. I couldn't see in the code what needed to be adjusted. And finally, I was just going to burst. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to go to the bathroom. And I was kind of disappointed with myself because it's one of those where you play these games with yourself and it's like, I'll get to this marker and then I'll do this. And I had kind of felt like I wanted to have that cleared out before I got up again to get to for my desk. And so I'm walking to the bathroom, and all of a sudden, just as I'm walking and I'm taking a quote unquote break, um, I can see in my mind the lines of code and I can see exactly where the problem was. And I was like, oh my gosh, how am I seeing this solution when I'm not looking at the code, and when I have taken this mental break? So I've taken this time to step away from looking at the code. It defied logic. And and that was where the bug was. Like, that was where the solution was. And so in order to see the solution, I had to step away from it. I had to give myself a break. And that, honestly, that solution came within 1 minute or 2 minutes, maybe. Um, so that was fascinating for me because I didn't have an awareness of consciousness. I wasn't a meditator. And I really had a very logical mind at this period of my life where I thought, that all solutions come from our brains, and I'm not going to get anywhere with this unless I mentally put the effort in to find the solution. And that was a very poignant experience for me because it gave me a new experience, and it showed me that there is solution outside of my human capacity as I understand it. And I didn't, honestly, I still thought it was me that gave me the solution. And I think it was a part of me that gave me the solution. I think it came from my super conscious mind. And but the super conscious mind is a solution oriented part of us. And there's a famous quote by Einstein that says, you can't solve a problem with the same level of consciousness that the problem is in. Meaning that you may have a problem in, your consciousness or subconsciousness. You may have a problem. Maybe going back to the smoking thing, maybe you see your habit of smoking as a problem, something that you want to overcome. And so the solution can be in that super conscious state. So, because I know I mentioned hypnotism, where we're going directly into the subconscious mind, but of course, with hypnotism, we're opening ourselves where all levels of consciousness are being accessed, and the superconscious is, of course, a part of that. And the superconscious is this part of us that is always accessible, but it's things like meditation help us to be able to have more direct access to it because we can be so closed to inviting in that intelligence, that higher intelligence, because we don't know we have access to it. So, just like this example where I was a computer programmer and I didn't know anything about consciousness. I thought everything came. The more I thought and thought and thought, that's where my answers were going to come from. And so this morning I was doing my regular daily meditation. And I know that there's one person in particular in my life right now who really needs a good solution to come through. And it's not going to happen through their mind. They need a miracle. And so I was feeling that I was connecting with them and in the quantum, let's say, and I was just in that space of the superconscious mind. And it's just a feeling. It's just it's hard for me to say this happened and then this happened and this is how I knew I was in the superconscious mind. But it was just opening this space and connecting with them in that superconscious space and inviting in solutions that we can't that are hidden from her right now, and that so that those, and we might also think of those as miracles, and then we take that even further with our capacity as humans on this planet in physical bodies right now, and the difficult time that our planet is in and that humanity is in, and tapping into that super consciousness and allowing solutions, big solutions for peace and for our um, ecology, for all sentient life, for the intelligence of the human species, that we make decisions that are more holistic, that are good for everybody. Knowing that with our mind, we may think that there are certain things that have to happen in a certain order for these solutions to take place. So let's think of the oceans, and that there's a lot of pollution in the oceans, and it can make it hard for ocean life to survive and to be prolific. And we may think we've got to convince people, and we've got to get the government involved, and we need to get these private investors. And it's not that those things aren't true, but that's also a very linear human experience. And along with that is the superconscious that can come in and really help to make those things come into place, to help those puzzle pieces come together in a way that defies logic. So, miracles. So, holding space for miracles and not letting our human brain, mental, logical thinking limit us in what we ask for. That's the whole point of this. Wanting to ask, to pray for the highest good, for things that we may think are impossible. Okay? We have no idea what's possible. But if we limit ourselves because we don't even bother to ask for world peace, for example, oh, it's naive to ask for world peace. What are, At this point, we're so far gone. How is that possible? Or whatever we might tell ourselves that would say, instead of that, I'm going to ask for $10 and let's let that be my miracle because that could happen. I could see that happening. So we can limit even what we would dare to ask for because we think that it's too much because our minds can't process it, our minds can't fathom it. But we all have access to this super conscious mind, and it is powerful. And we are programming it with our thoughts. So let our thoughts be with peace and with harmony and with balance and with health and well-being and protection and all of those things. All of them are accessible for us in this reality if we dare but ask. Thank you so much for watching. I bless you. Thank you.